Rochelle Levan, the Landscape Success Program Chair with the Fort Bend County Master Gardeners. Thank you for joining us for the Landscape Success online program today. This program was created by the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service in Fort Bend County, along with the Fort Bend County Master Gardeners, to help you create and maintain beautiful home landscapes. We've got a great program lined up for you today, Tree Care Basics. As part of this program, our presenters may refer to various source materials or websites, but don't panic if you can't catch them in time to write them down. All registrants will receive a follow-up email with a recording of the class, as well as all links to websites or resources mentioned. The follow-up email will also include a QR code for a survey of the class. The QR code will also be at the end of the presentation. Please be sure to fill out the survey as we use the feedback to prepare and improve future classes. If you have any questions during the class, please enter them in the group chat. Questions will be answered either during the presentation or at the end of class. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming our presenters, Fort Bend County Master Gardeners, Stacy Early and Jim Stepp. Stacy is a native Texan and longtime gardener who decided to make it official by becoming a Master Gardener with the class of 2023. She recently retired from a 42-year career traveling the world as an Aggie petroleum engineer. Along with Jim Stepp, she is a leader in the Fort Bend County Tree Team, a group of Master Gardeners whose mission it is to build and share knowledge about tree health, selection, and care. Jim was raised in Eastern Kentucky and became a Master Gardener in 2013. Jim retired from a 32-year career as a math professor at the University of Houston in 2000 and is a late-in-life lawyer. He is also a master naturalist with advanced training in propagation and greenhouse management and is currently working towards advanced training in tree care. However, Jim's passion is propagation, and he's currently propagating as much milkweed as possible to share with others. We're excited to have both Stacy and Jim here today. So the stage is yours.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for being here today. I just wanted to give you a little bit more information about Jim and me. We are both members of the Fort Bend County Master Gardeners Tree Group. I'm the co-chair along with Allison Deweese, and Jim is taking over management of the tree trail. And that tree trail is a part of our demonstration garden located at the Fort Bend County Extension Office. And he'll give you a little bit more information about that later in the presentation. So I'm going to run through our agenda for today. It's kind of the things that we want to talk about with you. The value of trees in the home landscape has a lot of parts to it. Tree plant and selection, planting, tree care after planting, a little bit more about the tree trail, and some of the resources that will help you in your tree care journey. This presentation is about trees in the home landscape. Now we're seeing the agenda. And so what I wanted to talk about with the agenda is just an overview. This is a presentation about trees in the home landscape. And it's not really addressed to orchards or fruit trees, although several principles, most of the principles we're going to talk about today will apply to those as well. We will be focused on what to do rather than what not to do. A little bit of not to do, but not a whole lot about problems. If you specifically have problems in your home landscape with your trees and want to find out more about what is this, please feel free to call the help desk and we'll share that information with you at the end of the presentation. So with that, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to hand off to him. And he's going to tell you a whole lot of things about the agenda and what we want to talk about here.
As Stacy said, I'm going to tell you some things. Well, I get to do the commercial. But first, a small amount of, I don't know what you call it, but I taught for over 40 years, and I'm not used to just straight lectures. So I would like to have interaction with you all. So please, if you have questions, post them in the chat room. I will look at them. Some of them I will answer directly. Some of them we'll postpone till the end, but it helps me know how things are going. And if you don't get an answer, don't worry. It's because I think it's going to be answered later. And at the end, if it's not answered, we will have a question session in which you can post it again. As far as why plant trees, this slide right here tells it all. If you understand this slide, then you'll understand why we have to have trees. And for some reason it takes wide. So what's the value of a tree and why plant a tree? Well, this has to do with home landscapes. So there are a lot of reasons to plant trees. If you go online and tap, why should I plant a tree? You can probably find 50 or 60, but they're mostly do not deal directly with the home landscape. So what values I'm going to give you here are strictly for the home landscape. And one of them is aesthetics. If you look at a nice landscape yard with trees planted properly, then you can see why that it's good. Another one is energy conservation. If you plant a tree just right, then it can reduce your heating and cooling cost. It can screen your property, especially if you have a neighbor that you don't want to see or you don't want the neighbor to see. Maybe you got a used car lot next door, then you can use trees as a screening. Property separation. Erosion control more comes with the reason, not so much a home landscape reason, but a reason for the city or something. One of the channels in Houston, they cleared out all the shrubbery and all the trees so that it would drain properly. Well, it turns out they're letting them grow back because with all the shrubbery and all the trees, it turns out to control flooding a lot better. This is a tree. This comes from the National Arbor Day Foundation. It talks about why trees are where to properly place trees. Now, I have a little bit of trouble with the picture, and I'll tell you why. But the real part about this picture is, see this light? There's a light pole over here. What you do not want to do is plant trees so that they will interfere with the electrical system. You remember Beryl, or is it Beryl? Was that name?
Beryl Hurricane? Yeah.
Beryl Hurricane. If you had trees close to that, then you're probably contributed to us not having electricity for 8 days, but that's not a thing. Then it talks about how far away to plant the trees. Take these numbers like this with a grain of salt. What you want to look at is the mature height of the tree. So you want that tree far enough away from a power line so at mature height, if it falls, it's not going to hit the power line. I said I wasn't real happy with this picture because to me, some of these trees are way too close to the house. You don't want a tree with the limbs lead over and are going to destroy your roof. Or you don't want trees where the roots will get in and destroy your foundation. However, if you plant it properly, you can shade your air conditioner, which can provide savings. You can shade a big window, which will provide shadings in the summer. If you look here, this comes from the real estate agent. If you properly say it's 27% of the value of the home is in the trees and landscaping. And trees cover a private home adds some big number annual to property values. Again, this picture down here bothers me. The picture on the lower left, those trees, as far as I am concerned, are too close to the house. Those overlapping trees. If we have Beryl come through and knock one of those trees over, that property is in bad shape. Here is a picture that you have to take with a grain of salt, because if you look at the house on the left, that's a lot more pleasant. Look at the house on the right. And so which house would you rather live in? Well, I would rather live on the one on the left, even though the trees are where they are. But there are actually people that would like to live on the one on the right because trees do take care. but this is our landscaping. The one on the right probably, and the one on the left, if they were equal in value, then everything equal, then our one on the left would probably sell for more and would probably move faster. Here is one that is my favorite one. Would you rather live in this nice shaded area, or would you rather live, which I think is New York City, but I'm not sure. It could be Chicago. Actually, I would rather live on the left, but there are people that would rather live on the right. But since you all are homeowners, I assume that you want to live on the one on the left. Nope, it's not me.
All
I'm
right.
passing it off to Stacy.
I'd say he wants you to look at his contract.
All right, so we wanted to talk about these things, and some of them Jim's going to be picking up in just a few minutes, but tree selection, planting season, hole prep, the first 6 months. So the first one, tree selection, we've listed a website that is just great. When you are developing your plan for your landscape, the Texas Tree Selector is a wonderful tool. In that you can put in height and it will select for you. It will select for you based on a number of different criteria, evergreen versus deciduous, etc. So you can use that. Okay, we'll try again. I just wanted to mention there's 2 elements of tree selection. And those 2 elements are the selection you make when you're developing your plan, what kinds of trees and which trees to put. And the second is when you go to pick the actual specimen at the nursery or wherever you're selecting it. And so we want to cover both things today. We're going to talk a little bit more about that tree selection in your plan. We also want to emphasize that the planting season is the autumn. The reason is that allows root structure in our mild climate to develop before the hit of the full heat of the summer. We'll talk more about that as well. Hole prep, really important. Jim's going to spend some time on that. And how to care for your tree for the first 6 months. We generally aren't going to talk a lot about the long-term care because once you get that tree established, trees are pretty resilient. If you pick the right one, it should take care of itself. So the next thing I wanted to share with you is kind of a little exercise. How do you pick the right tree for the right place for the right purpose? Well, here's some good, bad, and the ugly of avoiding issues. So I want you to think about this for just a minute. Put your arms out to the side, and how far is that? Well, I'm about 5.5 feet tall, so my wingspan is 5.5 feet. If I go stand in front of my house and one hand touches the house, the other tip of my hand, there should be no trees, no matter how small they are, within that span. If you can make 3 spans before you hit the sidewalk, you're talking about 15 or 16 feet. If you have 15 feet, then the biggest spread of tree that you should select would be twice that, 15 times 2 or 30 feet. So when you're looking for tree sizes, that's the ones you're going to want to pick. A lot of times you're going to see live oak trees in the front yard that builders have put in. I just want to alert you that the full spread of a live oak tree at its mature age is 100 feet. So you need a front yard that's 50 feet deep and put it at the absolute edge by the street in order to select a live oak for your front yard. There's so many other good choices, and we're going to talk about that, kind of go through some lists of some candidates at the end. So placement is important. You don't want to put a beautiful tree right under the power lines where the electric company is going to come and hack half of it off. That's a waste of your money and your care and your effort. You want spacing that's appropriate for the mature size of the tree. The trees look so small when you're going to the nursery and picking them out. Oh, it'll fit. Plan ahead for the full size of your tree. Environmental needs. Is your soil the right soil for this tree? Is it alkaline? Is it acidic? What is it? And you need to watch out for signs of stress, both when you're picking the tree at the nursery and when you're addressing tree issues in your landscape. So with that, Jim is going to take over with Think Before You Plant. And these are some of the issues that we see pretty commonly.
I'm back. I hope you can hear me again. I'm going to give you a couple examples, which I may refer to later on. So I, as a young homeowner, in 1968, purchased a house in Sharpstown. At that time, the tree of choice by builders was an Arizona ash. So one of the first things we all did is take the Arizona ash out because it was a trash tree. And it's one that is not recommended for the Texas area. Now, apparently the recommended tree for the Texas area is a live oak, which, as Stacy has already pointed out, is being planted in a lot of places where it should not be planted. Actually, there are some subdivisions where you're required to have 2 live oaks in the front yard. And these are small yards, they're city yards. And so one has to be careful, because even though we're going to talk about the right tree in the right place, some of you all have a homeowners association. And so you may not be able to pick the tree you want in the front yard, but I do encourage you, if you're in a homeowners association, try getting it so that you can get the live oaks out of your front yard. So I'll give you my 2 examples as a homeowner. I took out the Arizona ashes. I planted 2 pecan trees in my front yard. They were probably about 20, 25 feet from my house. It turns out it was a pretty good deal, pretty good idea. It was pure blind luck. The pecan trees grew. They shaded in the summer, they shaded my bay window that was on my living room, and the other one shaded the window that was in my main bedroom. And in the winter, all the leaves went, and then it was warm these 2 rooms. So that was a good thing. It was pure blind luck, but that's something you should think about, because trees can help you reduce energy cost. Those trees help me reduce electrical cost, and they also help me reduce my gas costs. Now I'll tell you the bad story. I, like everybody else, took 2 live oaks. I planted them between my sidewalk and the street, and took about 10 or 15 years. They had to come out, because if you look at the picture on the right that's on your screen now, that's not what mine quite looked like, because those roots didn't stop there. Mine pushed the roots up so that one end of the sidewalk was probably up about 1 foot. And probably I had all kinds of liability against joggers and everything. So they had to come out. So later on, I may say things like, remember my live oak trees. So I'll use that as an example. I did one other bad planting thing. I took a native pecan tree in my backyard. I planted it about 10 feet from the house. Well, native pecan trees grow kind of fast. That tree lasted probably no more than 5 years, until I looked up and the wind was blowing. It was taking my shingles off. So again, start with the plan. Think before you plant. Those are all bad. Those 2 of those are bad examples. One's a good example. But we're here to help you do only good examples. I hope we're successful. Maybe we won't be. Here is a good picture that emphasizes the various uses of trees. But before you pick any tree, you need to decide what you want the tree for. If you look at this picture in the back, you'll see the power lines. And you'll see a little thing that says small trees under power lines. Well, you need it under the power. If you're going to put a tree there, it needs to be one that doesn't get at maturity up to interfere with the with the wires. Also, it's not clear on this picture, but you also don't want to plant the tree too close to the pole because the workers have to get up sometimes to work on the thing, so you don't want to obstruct them. If you look on the right there, there's trees are shading with the roof, walls and windows, and you'll notice if you're not careful, one of those trees may be a little bit close, but the limbs are not leaning over the house. Also, maturity. You should not have the tree close enough to the house so that it blows down, it's going to hit the house. Because we live in hurricane country, and quite frankly, I guess about a month ago, my neighborhood looked like a war zone. And if you look on the left side, plant to screen undesirable views. You can use trees as a screen for privacy. Back in Sharpstown, we used 8-foot, 6-foot high wooden fences, which are not very attractive. And then if you look at the front, I could have done this better. You plant 3 trees, that has 3 trees. Those are called street trees. And if you, when I go through a particular slide, or I'm going to go through a tree picking program, and you'll see that, well, that's one of the things that there are certain trees that are recommended for there. My daughter in Lexington, Kentucky planted 3 trees there, and she did the research and found the right kind of trees for there. Unfortunately, those trees don't grow in Texas, so I can't tell you what they are. So you start with a plan. And what's the plan? What's the purpose of the tree? Are you trying to shade your yard, shade your air conditioner, shade the front room? Are you trying to block out a neighbor? You want privacy? That's the first thing you must decide. And then you have to look at the planting area. Like I mentioned earlier about the live oak trees in your front yard. That's probably not, I don't know many front yards that'll take a live oak tree, but I live in a place, subdivision that has large lots, and some of the houses are far enough back that they can take a live oak tree. But a live oak tree, as Stacy points out, it's got a massive spread, and even more massive than that is the root system. And the root system will go under our foundation, and they can destroy the foundation. Then you have to decide, will the tree actually grow here? I mean, you don't want to plant a tree that under another, they're called under trees. You don't want to plant a tree that needs full sun under another tree. What is your soil? Unfortunately, you can't control exactly what your soil is, but you need to know what it is, because some trees, like sandy soil, some trees will grow any place. What kind of drainage do you have in your yard? My backyard is low. I have a pump. I pump the water out after a big storm. So to me, that's not a very good place to plant a tree that can't handle a lot of water. Unfortunately, I'm going to give you another bad example of me, and this is one that I should have known better. I planted an oak tree in my backyard a week before the hurricane. That oak tree is dead because my backyard flooded. It sat in water for, I think, 10 days because air conditioning was out. I mean, not the air conditioning, electricity is out, so the pump didn't work. Then after it came back on, then the pump still didn't work. I had to get it fixed. And so it didn't stand a snowball's chance in a fireplace.
All right.
I changed that. Pet considerations. I don't know if you live, some places have to worry about deer because deer like to eat all kinds of things. But there are native trees that deers will leave alone. You need trees that are more pest resistant. We have a lot of diseases here. Some trees don't grow here because they're not disease resistant, but no tree is really truly pest or disease resistant. But you need all these things to take these into consideration. And a good resource if you want to know about a tree, I tell everybody this, it's still the internet. You can search it, but be careful of what you get, because a lot of websites will recommend certain trees because that's a tree they have. And it's not the tree that really should be there. If you want to really get a good feel on what trees and are pest resistant and things, and you want to test it, then there is a way to type into your search engine something that will give you only universities or places that are peer reviewed, where the tests are made, and they're not trying to sell you anything. So even though I suggest people use the internet, you have to be careful to not use it. I mean, to make sure that the recommendation you're getting is not because of the product they have to sell. I know I probably shouldn't have said that, but I did it. Growth and form, and that's probably, you probably, well, I don't know how to say this. When I'm going to go through this website that'll help you pick trees later. And when I go through that website, it'll give you certain recommendations under certain conditions. And then there is a thing where you can click on the trees that they have, which will give you what the growth and the form should look like. And so you may want a tree that looks like, that spreads out like a big oak tree, or you may want one that looks more like a spear, but it's whatever form you want. But all that information can be found on Texas A&M's website. Okay, so these are the problems to avoid. And Stacy's already talked about some of them. If you look at the original thing from the Arborist Society, it talks about some of them, but as I pointed out in the slide, some of them bothered me. If you look at the one upper right-hand corner, that one's planted too close to the house. That chimney is, if a hurricane comes through, that chimney's probably gone. If you look at the one on the left, these are things that maybe people don't think about. If you live on a corner lot and you plant too many shrubberies, trees too close, you may be blocking the view for traffic. So you may be creating a traffic hazard. If you look at that same picture, you can see my live oak tree there, except it's on the wrong side of the sidewalk. See that root that's going under there? That root is going to eventually push that up, and it's going to probably destroy that. It won't happen overnight, but it's going to happen. And you have access to utilities, transportation. Some houses, some places have septic systems. You need to not block the access to the septic system so that it can be serviced. And then the bottom one is one we talk a whole lot about, is avoid planting large trees near utility lines. And if you look at that, that's a perfect example of a V-shaped tree. It's got two problems. It looks ugly. And second, if you look at that V, that is a very bad joint. And that tree, under a good hard wind, has a good chance of splitting down the middle. I lost a live oak tree during a hurricane. It did not come up. It did not fall down, but I was not very good at pruning it as it grew up. And so it had a V about 6 feet up, and it just split right down the middle. Also, the small bout in the corner over there, whenever you plant a tree, unless you don't really get along with your neighbor, you need to take into account your neighbor and other people around. You don't want to block their view. Say, if there's a lake, and you wouldn't want to block their view of a lake. You wouldn't want to shade their garden. If they have a vegetable garden across the thing, you wouldn't want to do that. So just be a good neighbor when you plant the tree. Nobody's asked any questions yet. Rochelle,
We have a few questions.
I'm not seeing them for some reason. How do I get to them?
They're all through the chat. I can repeat them to you if you'd like.
Oh, wait, there's some here says
Sam?
31 new messages.
Okay.
Slides too small and sound is low. Don't know if presser can adjust the microphone. Well, I don't know about that. How do you move it down? Oh,
Yeah, there you go.
where is the first one?
The first one deals with watering, which I think you're going to get to.
I'm seeing the slides. I see them. They're working. Yes. So host sound is clear, but not the presenter. Well,
We're working on that.
we're working on that. Should we deep water mature trees and how? We're going to talk about that eventually. But let me just make one comment about that. I don't know where you are, but if you look out your window, you can probably see mature trees in the landscape that nobody waters, that are very healthy, that are just standing there. And so should you can, if you have a mature tree in your yard, then watering, I'm going to talk about at the end. It's not really good to do it with your sprinkler system, but I'll get to that later. And do trees help muffle road noise? The answer is yes. They may not be as good as these big cement things they put up, but you can use a tree. I mean, it's a shield. Sound comes through it. It's just like you're blocking the wind. One of the things you can do with trees, not only to muffle road noise, but if you plant a series of trees along the north side of your property line where it blocks the north wind, you can cut down on a lot of the damage that the north wind does. I don't know how long ago it was, 4, 5, 6 years ago, where we had the big deep freeze. I don't want to tell you this, but I lost 32 trees all on the north side of my house. They were all citrus trees, so they were susceptible to that cold. But so you can use trees to block wind. What can we do to prevent trees from falling like they did during? Pick the right kind of tree. Now I'm going to get in trouble. I'm down on elms, the cedar elms. My subdivision, almost all the trees that came down were cedar elms. I mean, there were just tons of them that came down. And so I lost a cedar elm that was probably 80 to 100 feet high. I didn't plant it. It was there when I came. But cedar elms I'm down on. So you plant one that has a good deep root system. And so it's a matter of picking the tree. So
Can I say something about muffling noise?
yes.
I was just going to say, one of the things that you'll want to do is when you're selecting trees, you can pick trees that muffle noise better than others. A mesquite tree, for instance, isn't going to muffle anything because it has a very non-dense tree structure or crown structure. But a magnolia, for instance, has a really dense leaf structure. And so you can muffle the noise better with certain tree selections. So I encourage you to look at what is it, Texas A&M Forest Service
Website, yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, even when you plant the tree, to do it, it depends on how you prune it, which we'll talk about later. But if you want it to muffle noise and muffle wind, you're not going to prune it the way you would a tree that you want in the middle of the yard, because you want growth almost all the way down to the ground. We'll talk about planting later. This one about how big gallon size the ideal plant, we'll save that for later. There we go. Oh, good. Here's my favorite picture again. One I've already talked about. And you need to take this picture with a grain of salt. This can be a big, where they went back. I keep hitting my mouse with my piece of paper. And said, I look at this, and the only thing I've got on this slide is remember my two live oak trees. these trees right here, as far as I'm concerned, they were planted in Maine or New Hampshire, someplace where they don't have big, heavy winds, not in Tornado Alley or anything. But a lot of those trees are definitely too close to the house. You plant, and these numbers, as I said earlier, these numbers, take them with a grain of salt. Whatever tree you do, look at what its mature size is going to be, and then plant it far enough away from whatever you're worried about so that if it falls down, it doesn't destroy it. This is mostly talks about the power lines, but this tree right here, or the tree right in the middle, it's too, if we had a big storm, if that thing comes down, that house is history. So you have to be careful where you plant your trees. Now, if you want a tree with that you don't want, somebody said something, how do you keep a tree from falling? Plant a tree with a deep root. Try a pecan tree. They have a pretty deep root system. However, as they get older, it's my understanding the deep root disappears. But so there were pecan trees that came down in my neighborhood, by the way, but all the ones that came down in my neighborhood were very old pecan trees. Do I have anything else on this? Yeah, think if the tree falls, is it going to miss whatever you want it to miss? And that is really what you should get from this picture. Not 20 inches, not 20 feet, not 50 feet. It's a mature size of the tree. This is the one I want to go through. Actually, when I started this, I assumed that there was going to be people in the audience. And so I was going to let somebody I was going to help somebody pick a tree, but since they're not, I get to pick it. So it's this site right here. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're thinking about a tree, this may be one of the more valuable things you'll get out of this talk. It's a tree selection. It is not exclusive. It's not exclusive. There are other trees that will work. But this one is mostly on natives and ones that grow in the area. And hopefully it comes up. And it did come up. And this is a tree selector.
Texas Tree
All right, so
Planting Guide.
this is a tree planting guide. It's got more than things. It's got an express tree selector, but it's got a custom tree selector, which is what I'm going to. The first thing you have to put in is a county. I know which county we're in. And then you start with options. The space available for my tree is not sure. Well, I don't know. A small area, less than 120 square feet. That's about the size of a room, isn't it?
Yeah, so if your front yard is 12 feet deep and 10 feet wide between your neighbor's yard and the sidewalk, well, then this would be about right, a small area.
But we'll go to somewhat restricted, a little bit less than 100. Let's try that.
Okay.
And I want a tree that is small. You get to pick the size. And again, remember when I talked about size, the size depends on what happens at maturity if it falls. Well, let's do medium to that. And I want a tree with leaves that drop in the fall. I do because I want to shade my living room. And you can go through all these. I'm not going through all of them. A Texas native, a tree that I will plant. So let's see what the trees are. And so that's what it gives you for the trees that I picked. Now, this is not mutually exclusive, ones you may never heard of, but this is what they come up with. Now, if you look at this tree right here, golden rain tree, I don't know anything about it. So you get more about the tree, you get information about the tree. It shows you what it looks at maturity. It's supposed to show you mature height someplace. Let me go back. How do you go back in this thing? I don't want to use that. More about this tree. This is lace elm. Actually, there's a place that will give you more information. I thought this had more. It doesn't seem to have the mature height.
Probably because we picked that as one of the criteria, maybe.
Well, it's already, sorry. I picked the height, so if you do no, let's see what happens if we do no preference. See, it's a bad thing if you get me with one of these things. I just start playing, I can't stop it. Then you get a whole bunch of things, and then you have to worry about it. Now, this is about trees. I've had people complain that a crepe myrtle's not a tree. Well, you can make it a tree. Golden rain tree, those are multiple trunk trees. So let's see, what about this tree? Yeah, it's not going to tell me how high it is. I'll have to find that other place. But anyway, this is a very good website. I suggest you use it. I'm going to go look at one other thing. Express Tree Planting and Care. This has got landscaping around your house, planning for your available space, planning for electrical efficiency. You can go through all these things. It's got a lot of information. We're going to go through this bottom one down here on the left. Best way to plant your tree, and then I'll make some comments, because it's not the case that everybody that claims to know about trees agrees how to plant a tree, but we'll get to it. All right, so now get me out of this and get me back. Oh, I see both. All right, let's see where I'm. All right, then we're talking about selecting trees. I pulled this slide off another place, and it's another one of these things I'm not going to really agree with. One says, walk the neighborhood and see what trees are doing well. Well, if you're in Houston, you walk the neighborhood and see what trees are in the yard, you are going to plant a live oak tree. If you walk around Rice University, you can see what live oak trees will do to your sidewalk. However, if you walk around and say what species you like, you see a good looking tree, and you're just looking for the shape of a tree, that would be a good place to do it. Then comes the question is, how are you going to decide what that tree is? You probably can take a picture of it, and there is a website that the master gardeners have that you could send a picture of the tree to the website, and they will identify the tree for you. There is a app called, I think, iNaturalist, which you can use. Also, Google has a new Google, if you use it just right, will give you a good idea of what the tree is. And then we've already talked about growth and form. Again, you want the tree one that looks like what you want it to look like. One of my neighbors has a bunch of trees, and they all look like lollipops. It's not my favorite tree. It doesn't provide much shade, but apparently they like it. And again, finally, the last thing, don't forget about the mature size of the tree. Because that is with all of our winds and the hurricanes, that is probably one of the bigger things that you have to worry about. And also, I will you can actually go to Texas A&M and ask them on the website and ask them about trees, and they can give you the pros and cons of it. So there are lots of information. It won't let me do it with the enter key. Well, that didn't work. There we go. Now comes the question of how to select a tree at a nursery. Well, this is a hard problem. I'm giving a talk later where we're wanting to go and pick a small tree to take and buy and use as a demonstration. Well, you can't find a small tree at a nursery these days. So if you're going to pack a tree at a nursery, first thing you do is you look at it. I mean, it's got all these things, no wounds, they're going to mostly nurseries are going to take good care of the tree. So look at the tree, see if it's got a good form. There are very few of them are going to have wounds or anything like that. They're all going to sort of look like nice straight. What you do want is you want a central leader for most trees. The crepe myrtle, no, but most trees you want a good central leader. See if it's pruned the way that you would like it to prune, because they're going to shape it. The problem is that tree may have been in that nursery for 2 or 3 years. So you need to, the important thing is up here, you can tell that. You can look at the top of the tree, the canopy of the tree, and see if it's well taken care of, whether it's got a strong central leader or whether it's got a very weak V, or several weak Vs. What you can't really tell about it is what it looks like in the pot. So first thing you should do is you should take it out of the pot and look at it. If the nursery will not let you pull the tree out of the pot to look at it, go to another nursery. A good nursery will want your business. They want to sell you a good tree. If you look up at the right-hand corner, that is one of the things that happens to a tree that has been in a pot way too long. That tree is probably, once you plant it, is not going to live. It will probably live for a few years. I got one more story. I got a lot of stories.
All right.
I've only had one tree planted by a nursery. It lasted 5 years, and then it died. I pulled it out, and up in the upper right-hand corner is what it looked like. The people that planted it, the nursery that planted it, did not take care of it. When they planted it, they just pulled it out of the pot and stuck it in the ground. They guarantee their tree for 6 months. This thing is not going to die in 6 months. It's going to die in 4 or 5 years. And so pull it out, look at it. It should be full. It should have nice roots. It shouldn't have girdling roots, but it should be full of roots. And again, I'd ask them how long they've had the tree. There's one nursery I asked about a pecan tree. They said they had one pecan tree. I said, how long you had it? They said 5 years. And so they have them. They're not going to, it's not like a grocery store. They're not going to take the tree and send them back after so many years. So the important thing to me is when you pick a tree is look at the root ball. Also, if you look at the top, if it doesn't look healthy, but those are just common sense things. I mean, if you're going to do a magnolia tree and it's got yellow leaves, don't buy it. It needs to have good dark leaves. Then, this is another one. I'm not sure why we kept both of them, but I asked plenty of questions. Do you have a photo of what the roots should look like? Answer is no.
Kind of see.
Actually, if you look at the picture on the left, if you look at that little cutout down there, it should be sort of full. There should be no big roots on the outside unless they're out going down. But if you look at the picture there, you can sort of see they should be nice and full of roots. The roots should be nice. They should not be brown. They should not be brittle. But the roots should fill up the pot, but not circling. See, remove the root ball from the pot and look. Well, I got a little ahead of myself when I said it earlier. This one tree on the right, it's got things that I don't like. I wouldn't pick it. I wouldn't even pull it out of the pot because of that V up there. That V is a very weak joint, and in a heavy wind, it's likely to split. Again, they point out circling roots inside the container. Again, pull it out. Ask a lot of questions. I have no idea how much time we got left.
30 minutes.
We have 30 minutes,
30 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess
33 to be exact.
okay. Any more questions over here? Could circular roots be trimmed to stimulate growth? The answer is yes. I wouldn't pick the tree that has the circling roots, but if you plant it properly and take care of the root ball properly, you can save the tree. What you have to do is you have to cut the circling roots. You have to take and spread them out. But I would go and pull out another tree because that tree's been in that pot too long. But you can cut the circling roots and trim them. Fact of the matter, even if the tree is full and it looks good, if you look, you may see some that are starting to circle, and those should be trimmed.
Can you kind of pull the roots out a little bit, like when you get it out of the pot before you plant it? Can you kind of lift those so
All right.
that those roots are
We're
spread?
going to talk about planting trees, and Stacy's asked a question, which I guess I'm gonna get in trouble here. I went to a symposium where we had 4 speakers, all of which talked about planting trees, and it's safe to say that none of the 4 agreed what you do with the root ball. So we'll talk about that again when it comes up planting. So I think that's a good thing to discuss, and I'll be glad to come back to that. Is that all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There's a couple other things you've already covered here.
Okay. Choosing a quality tree. Somehow or another, I'm not getting the thing to go. Am I still speaking about planning? I got to do planning also? All right. Here's where I'm going to get in trouble. Cause a lot of people don't agree with this. It has to do with what you do with the root ball, but this is probably a standard picture. The important things are you're going to dig a hole, and it's going to be 2 or 3 times bigger than the root ball. 2, you don't want the hole to go any deeper than the root ball. You want what is under here, under the root ball, to be fairly solid. I don't know if that's the right word. It should be the natural thing. If this is all loose underneath the tree, as the tree settles, it's going to go down. And you want the root ball to be at least level with the surface of the ground. I prefer at least an inch above it. That takes care of some kind of settling. But first of all, make sure that you have a nice thing. I would recommend that you score the sides of the hole that you dig. Most of you all are going to plant in clay, and if you score the sides, it leaves a little bit of room for or a little bit of invitation, let me say, for the roots to fill out. Then what you do is you start filling back in. Well, first thing, I forget this sometimes, you should fill the hole full of water. Walk away, come back the next day, and if there's still water in there, there's nothing you can do there unless you want to dig about a 50-foot deep hole and then fill it up. I don't think there's anything you can do. Just find a different spot. You've got no drainage. Water's going to sit in there. They will suffocate the roots. The top of the root ball should be level with the ground or slightly higher. I prefer slightly higher. One, because even if you do it, depending on how you handle the root ball, it still may go down a little bit. And you don't want it to go down because then it creates a place where it can just sit in water. Now we start. This is where some people disagree. But you should fill it with just the soil that came out. The tree has to grow where you're putting it. Some people cannot do it, so some people just have to put a little bit of, I don't know, something to loosen up the soil. If you do, don't put any more than about 20%. If it's what you're putting it in, if it's too attractive to the roots, they're not going to go out. So you put backfill. Now, just don't fill it up completely. What I would do is I would take and put the original soil about 1/3 up, and then I would water it. I wouldn't tamp it down. I would water it. Then I would do another third and water it. What you're doing is you're naturally filling up the blank spaces, whatever you call them, air pockets, whatever they are, but you're not trying to make another pot. And the third one is I would fill it all the way up and then I would water it. Then you build a soil ring around it so that when initially when you water it, the water doesn't completely run off. And then you should put mulch around it. And we talk about mulch, but it should be a good hard wood mulch, and it should be not up next to the trunk. Fact of the matter, it should not even cover the root ball. Some people like to put a little bit on the root ball, but it should not cover the root ball. Pardon? Too much? But that's you, isn't it? No, that's all right. Any question? I have a peach tree in the backyard, and out of which has recently, I can't read it, all leaves dried up. Is the tree dying? To answer that question, you need to take a picture of the tree, take a picture of the surrounding area, and email it to us at the hotline, and we will look at it and see what happens. Berry broke off. What about trimming trees to keep them small? We'll get to tree trimming in a minute. What about else we got? One new message. I have a peach tree. Somebody put something up there.
Yeah, that's great.
So
Got
whoever
help
put that
desk.
up there, thank you. I have 4 peach trees in the backyard. I recently all these.
But when it comes to problem solving, we have the help desk and they are equipped to help you with problem solving on your trees. We're trying to share with you kind of the basics of how to get them going. So if we may refer you, at the end, we will give you the address and the phone number, and I think it's in the chat too, right?
It is, but I'll talk about peach trees real quick.
Mhm.
I've killed 4 of them, 5 of them, 6 of them. They don't like it. They don't like my yard because it's too wet. Peach trees do not like wet feet. So if you had a lot of wet feet this spring, we may have trouble with your peach trees. They don't like water. Proper to mulch or not to mulch? Well, I got one more staking. When you buy a tree at the nursery, a lot of times the tree has probably a bamboo stake taped to it real tight to make it look straight and stand up straight. The first thing you do when you get that tree is you take those things off of there. If you don't, then as the tree grows, that can girdle the tree and kill it. My daughter almost killed a tree. Fortunately, I found it in my last trip up there where she had left it, and it looked like, I don't know what the thing is where it looked like a pancake, hamburger bun, where it has well, anyway.
Yeah.
What it does, it destroys a cambium layer. It blocks it off. So take that off first. And staking. If you plant the tree properly, it should not require staking. Now that's a caveat because some trees that you buy are top heavy and they will blow over in the wind and stuff. So you have to, staking, you may be required. But if you stake it, don't use one stake like they do at the nursery and tie it up because that can girdle the tree. The normal way is, I think if you drive around new places, you'll see them where they use 3 stakes and wires, and usually they don't put the wire next to the tree. What we all do is we take an old garden hose, cut it, and run the wire through that so that we don't cut the bark of the tree. But if it doesn't blow over, it should not require staking. The tree needs the wind. It needs to fight the wind to build a good, strong trunk. So be careful when you try staking it. Don't stake it too tightly.
Yeah, may I add something about staking? I just wanted to share with everybody that staking, as Jim was saying, if you run, if you have, say, a fence post and you plant that in the ground so that it's next to the tree and you run a wire, do not allow the wire to touch the tree. Put rubber or a garden hose section on the tree and leave it kind of like a teardrop so that tree has room to move within that staking. As he was saying, that helps it build strength. Now, I know I live in a place where the wind just blows your hair off from March through May. And so a tree does need staking, but I live out in the country. If you are living in a suburban landscape, the wind is not going to have that tremendous of an impact on your tree. It's going to have some shielding around you. So just keep all of that in mind. And after 1 year, there should be no stakes. You got to get them off of there, or that poor tree is going to start getting cut off. As Jim said, the cambium layer will not be able to develop properly.
All right. Any more about staking? No. 5 new messages. I suggest sending an email with pictures to our help desk. That was me.
Yeah.
I have a red button front yard. I'll come back to that later. We'll come back
Jim?
to some, yes.
Jim, question, is it illegal to remove a live oak tree?
Run that by one more time. Is
Uh,
it illegal?
Is it illegal? So somebody was told it's illegal to remove a live oak tree. Is that true?
Well, I'll answer it this way. If you live in a subdivision and your subdivision requires that you have a 2 live oak trees in the front yard, it's not illegal to remove them. They're just going to fine you or.
Illegal implies there's a law against it in the state of Texas or in Fort Bend County. There's no law that says you cannot remove a live oak tree, but there could be restrictions, deed restrictions on
That's
your
right.
property.
That's only deed restrictions, and those are enforceable. I don't know how they enforce them in court, but it's a civil matter. It's not a legal matter. I mean, when you go into a homeowner's, when you build a house or buy a house, you have deed restrictions. You're obligated to do those. They're not criminal things. If you don't do those are things that the homeowners association can probably pull you into small claims court or something.
So read them.
No, nobody reads them. You should, but I've never read them.
One last question.
Yes,
Just, I don't know. I don't think you saw this one. Are mountain laurels a good choice for planting 10 feet from the house front?
I'm gonna leave that up to Stacy.
Yeah, I'll talk about
She's
that.
gonna talk about trees and the various trees in Fort Bend County. And so that question is more appropriate later on in the program.
Okay. And just,
And
giving you
if she doesn't answer it, ask it again.
Yeah.
okay, and just giving you I'm giving you a time check, 15 more minutes.
Okay.
Well, I'm not gonna finish then.
Skip this one. You already
All right,
talked
to
about
mulch or not mulch, just don't do the volcano mulch. About the only tree that can survive the volcano mulch is a live oak. Apparently you can't kill the thing, so. But don't use inorganic mulches. Don't use colored mulches. They have chemicals in them which are not good for the environment. But again, the only thing about this slide is don't do the volcano mulch, but do the mulch where you do it and leave at least 6 to 12 inches from the trunk, and you make another sort of round, and you want 3 to 4 inches. That's to keep weeds down, but you're still going to get grass coming in there, so you're still going to have to work with it. Watering your young trees. Just still me. Well, I told you what you do at planting. A good investment, which is like $10 to $12, it's a moisture meter. Unfortunately, I'm too cheap. I don't use it. You can take your finger and do about as much. But when you plant your trees, depends on what time of year you do it and how much rain we have. You don't want to soak the tree. You want to keep it kind of damp for the first 3 or 4 months. If you plant it in the fall, then you're probably not going to have to worry about watering it very often. If you get one rain a week during the fall, you probably don't have to water it. If you plant it like some of us did in July, you're probably going to water it 2 or 3 times a week because of weather. And you have to be careful of watering because clay soils, we have it holds water. It doesn't allow water to drain. And one of the worst things you can do, and we kill more trees by overwatering than underwatering. I mean, an underwatered tree and an overwatered tree, they sort of look the same. And so you just have to be careful. So I suggest if you don't know which one it is, that you get a nice probe, carefully check the soil moisture. But you're more likely to kill it by overwatering than underwatering. That's my take on this one. This is the one somebody asked about earlier. This is watering mature trees. It's not good to do with emitters. You don't want to do it on the trunk. People need to know that the feeder roots are really around the drip line and they go out farther. I mean, a live oak tree, the feeder roots probably go out twice as far as the canopy is. And so one of the recommended ways, and if you will email the hotline, we can send you a link that talks about watering mature trees, but it's sort of a 2-tiered process. What you do is you come in and you soak it for about I can't remember off the top of my head, 5-10 minutes, and then you wait about an hour or 2 and then come in and redo it, because what you're doing is getting the soil ready to take it. If you put too much on at first, then it all runs off. People say that certain trees need 2 inches of rain a week. So if you get a 2-inch downpour in 15 minutes, that's not 2 inches, because that's all going to run off. So what you need to do is slowly water it. Ideal watering zone is from a little past the drip line. And you can trickle it. Soaker hoses are good. It's better not to get the water up in the air if you can keep the water down, because any water you put up in the air, some of it evaporates. But actually, mature trees, I don't water. If you look out and you look in the forest, the only person that's watering those is Mother Nature. And trees are very resilient. If it's a native tree, it's probably going to do all right in this area. No, you can have it.
Thank you. I know we're running out of time and we want to make sure that we get all this good information to you. So if I don't mind, So one of the things that we wanted to share with you too is you notice that in this picture, how the roots extend beyond the drip line. There was a school of thought some years ago that a tree's root structure was as wide as the tree, and then it kind of went down in the same shape as the tree, but it doesn't. It goes quite widely. So you're going to want to water in what's called the ideal watering zone from around the drip line outward. We just wanted to make sure people understood that. And pruning is a pretty quick story. A young tree does not need to be pruned. If there is a dead branch, yes, prune that off. And here's some good information about how to do a pruning. so that you don't tear the fabric of the tree. And that's important because you don't want to introduce problems, water influx, or rot or something like that. So there are some basic tips on this, but in the first 3 years of your young tree's life, you don't really need to trim it. You need to let it grow to see what kind of shape and which direction the healthiest branches are going. So we just wanted to share that with you real quickly. And Jim's no Bradford pears. So I think he wanted to make sure that we understood that Bradford pears have been overplanted, lovely in the spring, but they have a short lifespan. They are a bad structure. There's a lot of V-shaped branches. They break off. They also displace native trees, and especially with cross-pollination with fruiting pears, is really not a good choice. I also wanted to share with you a few other.
Let me make one more statement about Bradford pears.
Yes, sir.
There are certain states that are banning the sale of Bradford pears. Ohio, I think, is one that bans it. I think North Carolina starts a ban this year. Pennsylvania may, but there are a lot of, there are states that are recognizing how damaging they are to the environment, as invasive as they are. So that slide is mine. No Bradford pears.
I've got a couple of others that the Texas AgriLife system recommends against, such as ash trees. They have a beautiful shape similar to a live oak tree, but they have a short life. They have limb breakage. Hackberries, mimosas, beautiful tree, but aggressive spreader. Mulberries, also aggressive spreaders and messy. So you want to look out for what is the right tree for your location. So based on that, we wanted to give you some options, and some really important options for the suburban landscape are these small space trees, beautiful trees such as the cherry laurel. Somebody asked about the Texas mountain laurel, and it is a good choice too. When I say that they're small, they're generally less than 20 feet tall and 20 feet wide. These vary quite a lot. I think people know that some crepe myrtles can be 30 feet tall and others are no more than 10 feet tall, and they just stay that way. So selecting even the variety within these small tree options is important. So have a look at some of these. I know some people were expressing surprise that magnolias were on the list, but the little gem is a dwarf version of the full, beautiful southern magnolia, and can be a good choice for you for both visual screening, for some shade, but also are a more vertical tree. So for, and not as wide. Saucer magnolias, same thing, and just gorgeous January, February floral display. So these are some good choices for you, and you might even get fall color out of some of these smaller trees. Crepe myrtles have great fall color. Loquats are evergreen. So there's a variety of choices here depending upon what you're looking to do in your yard. So think about them when you're considering your plan. If you're planting under a power line, or you just don't have the space between your house and your neighbor's house, then, or your house in the street, these are some good selections to consider. We wanted to also emphasize to you some of the trees that are in our tree trail. The tree trail is basically an arboretum that the extension office has allocated some land for out behind the office. And we encourage folks to come and take a look in them. One of the things that we're wanting to share with you is that we have only just begun this tree trail. We are looking to have more labels. We have some labels now. And by the end of the year, we're looking to have them all labeled. They're all fairly young and new, but some of the things you can do is come out and look at their overall shape, and that may help you with your selection process. So we want you to take a look at some varieties like the ball cypress or the Montezuma cypress, which does not have knees and therefore might be of interest to you. The variety of oak trees, some of these oak trees are more vertical than they are wide, and they might be good selections for you. Cedar elm, not everybody's favorite, but we have one of those out there as well as Texas redbud, some Chinese fringe trees, some crepe myrtles, possum haw holly, absolutely gorgeous red berry display in the wintertime. So these are some good choices that we encourage you to come out and take a look at. See what you think about them.
Got 5 time for questions.
Yeah, so we're getting close. We wanted to make sure that you are aware of these resources. We did talk about them during the course of this presentation. The Texas A&M Forest Service Tree Selector is a very handy tool when you're planning new plantings, but it can also be helpful for you to get some information about trees you already have. We also encourage you, if you have tree problem questions, to call the Fort Bend Master Gardener Help Desk. The help desk is Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to noon. And there are usually 2 or 3 people there staffing that.
Could I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
If you have a question, it's better to do it with an email with pictures, especially like one of these things I'm asking a question about a red bug, I think it was, that's got broken limbs. If you'll take a picture of the red bud and the surrounding area and send it via an email, then you'll get the person that gets it can actually see what the problem is. Because just saying there's broken limbs doesn't give us enough information.
Yeah.
So pictures, and you can't send too many pictures.
Yeah, absolutely. So we encourage you to use that resource. The other thing I just wanted to go kind of back through here as to what we did cover. So we did talk about the value of trees in our home landscape and how to plan for trees as well as select. Select them for your plan and select them at the nursery. How do you plant them? How do you care for them for the first 6 months? Planting is so critical to success. And talk a little bit about the tree trail. And we also have the tree trail as part of a demonstration garden that's out behind the extension office. Absolutely beautiful. Covers a wide variety of plantings, including an HOA garden and the Texas Superstars. So the superstar plants are a wonderful thing to come and look at and pick from. So we hope that you'll come out and take a look. And thank you very much for joining us today. Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Could you show the QR code, please?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so the next slide is a QR code where we ask you and invite you to take a picture of this and then provide your feedback. So some of the things that we would love to hear from you today is if these topics and the things that Jim and I were talking about are the things that are of value to you in picking trees and getting them started. What else would you like to see? Would you like to have a future presentation specific to fruit trees or specific to problem issues with trees? We would be welcoming your feedback and your comments about this presentation as well as what else you would like to see.
I want to answer one question. Somebody's talking about a 30-year-old oak tree. If it's close to your house, don't remove it. That may cause more problems than leaving it there, because if it's close to your house, then it's probably got roots under your house. And once you take a tree out, then the roots start dissolving or whatever they do, and you may cause more problems than it's worth. So we don't recommend live oak trees for small front yards. If it's been there and it's been there 30 years, then you're probably better off leaving it there. The best thing to do is work with your homeowner association so you don't put it in the first place. One question that we had earlier that I'd like to answer is when you plant the trees, actually they said autumn. Well, the correct answer is 20 years ago, but you've already missed that one.
Yes, exactly. And I see a comment from somebody about Vitex being on the invasive list, and it is. And by invasive, there's two ways of looking at it, either as aggressive spreaders or invasive, meaning they're displacing native species. Either way, that is not something you want to do. If you plant Vitex and you live on a 6,000 square foot lot in an urban environment, it might be okay to plant such a tree because you can bound it. It's either in a big pot or it's in a shielded bed. But yes, if the tree is invasive and you don't want to be adding to that problem, I am happy that you're considering those kind of factors when you're selecting a tree. Yeah.
Other than getting big, it's not expanding. It just gets big.
Yeah. So it's not taken over. And so those are all considerations, but I'm glad you're thinking about that. Other questions? Let's see, I think we got it. All right.
Okay. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Jim and Stacy. And as Stacy mentioned, we do have our QR code here. So if you can fill out this survey, we do use it for additional classes that we will be preparing. This particular class is the last class of our Landscape Success 2024. So we will now be preparing for our classes for 2025. So these surveys, this feedback is greatly appreciated. So we also would love to hear if there's any additional topics that you would like to hear from us. And we will be planning that. So please come back to the Fort Bend Master Gardeners website and we'll start those classes for 2025 for the Landscape Success in February of 2025. So now we will be going into preparing for those classes. So I just wanted to say thank you for all that great information. We will also be sending all registrants, anybody who's registered for the class, we will be sending you a copy of this recording with any links that were referenced within about a week. So also last thing, I know we've run out of time, but if anybody does have any questions about their trees, I know Jim mentioned it, that if you can take some pictures and send it to our help desk, we will absolutely help you in trying to decide what is, you know, if there are any problems and anything like that, and they'll direct you in a way that you can help find out.
As it turns out, Jim and I are both staffing the help desk Monday morning, so send them over the weekend.
Awesome. Yes. Yes. So a lot of times I know when working on, or when you're talking about your different trees or your different plants and the plants that have problems, the pictures absolutely help in the help desk being able to see what is actually going on. So very important to get as many pictures as you can when you send it to the help desk. I know when I was doing the help desk, you know, those are an integral part, because also, like Jim said, the trees that are overwatered or underwatered show the same symptoms. They look visually the same. So
All right, thanks.
okay. Did you want to take a few more questions? We have about 5 more minutes, or should we send them to the help desk?
Oh, we do.
Oh, I thought it was over.
Yes, we are over. We'll send the rest of them to the
All right,
help
I
desk
want-
if you have any problems.
I want to talk a little bit about the root ball. Somebody asked a question about it. As I said, I went to a presentation where I had 3 or 4 people and they all talked different about it. Something went off. Am I still on? Am I
Yes,
still
Jim, you're still on. You're still
We
on.
can hear you.
All right. So when you pull the root ball out, and once you have the tree, you're stuck with the tree. So you pull the root ball out. Some people, one of the things to do is to kind of sort of spread out the roots a little bit. You don't want to destroy the ball too much because you don't want it to set down into the ground. Some people will, and a lot of people do it, will score the sides of the root ball. We're looking at something else. So score the sides of the root ball. I do that. One of the reasons is if you score the sides, you may be able to pick out some roots that are sort of curling. Actually, then the next talker said, whatever you do, don't score the root side. So the point of this is there are a lot of different ideas on how to handle the root ball, but the bottom line is that tree is very resilient. Unless you really do something wrong, it's probably going to live. So me, I score the root side, but I don't mess with the bottom because I want it to set on pretty much onto the base of thing. But the important thing for the root ball is to get rid of the circling roots. I'm not
Thank
sure
you,
I
Jim.
answered anything or just mumbled.
Nope, that was good. Thank you so much. Okay, so again, please fill out the survey and please come back and check us out for our 2025 classes. So thank you again.